My father-in-law slapped me at a baby shower and called me defective. What he didn't know was that I was already 12 weeks pregnant. This is my story. His open hand hit the right side of my face in the middle of his own daughter's baby shower, right in front of 25 people. I was standing there holding a paper plate with the little cheese sandwiches and carrying a baby he didn't even know about. 12 weeks. I was 12 weeks pregnant. Let me rewind about 15 minutes because that's all it took for everything to fall apart. 15 minutes. Jake and I pulled up to Madison's house on Oakwood Drive around 1 in the afternoon. It was an early October Sunday, still warm enough that the front door was propped open with one of those decorative iron doorstops shaped like a dog. I remember that dog. I remember everything about that day with the kind of sharp clarity your brain saves for disasters and funerals. Walter was already out on the back patio, holding a Heineken. It was his fourth, judging by the empty bottles lined up along the railing like little soldiers. Marlene was inside, carefully arranging a vegetable tray like she was defusing a bomb. Madison, 8 months pregnant and glowing but clearly exhausted, sat at the dining table opening gifts while her husband Grant recorded everything on his phone. It all looked normal. Completely normal. And if you'd never met Walter Parker, you'd think it was just a nice, quiet family afternoon. But here's what you need to know about Walter. He ran a construction supply warehouse in Dayton for 32 years. And he treated his family the same way he ran that place. Everything had a system. Everything had a chain of command. And if something didn't fit where he thought it should, you paid for it. Jake grew up learning one thing above all else: how to redirect his father's temper onto someone else. He got really good at it. Too good. Walter and I were never close, but things got worse about a year before that shower. I had a miscarriage at 8 weeks. It was my first pregnancy and it broke me. Jake was devastated too, but Walter, this is the part that still makes my jaw clench. He told Jake privately that maybe I just wasn't built for this. Built for this. Like I was a machine that didn't pass inspection. Jake didn't even tell me right away. He mentioned it 5 months later during an argument about something completely unrelated, like it wasn't a big deal. I never forgot it. I never forgave it. So when Walter looked at me across Madison's living room that afternoon, his fourth beer tilting in his hand, and said, loud enough for the aunts, cousins, and even Madison's neighbor to hear, "Still no kids, Katie? I guess some women just aren't cut out for it." I didn't react. I had been preparing myself for Walter Parker since the day I got married. I looked right at him and said, as calm as I could manage, "Well, Walter, not everyone gets the timing they want." That was it. That's all I said. You could ask any of the 25 people in that room. But something in his face shifted. Not suddenly. Slowly, like milk going bad. He set his beer down on the counter and started walking toward me. I could feel the whole room tighten, like the air before a storm hits. He leaned in close. Close enough that I could smell the beer and the mint candy he thought was hiding it. "You've had a mouth on you since day one," he said. "Defective and disrespectful." I straightened up and said, "Don't talk to me like that." What happened next depends on who you ask. 25 people heard it, and everyone remembers it a little differently. But what I heard, standing just a few feet from him, was, "Someone should have corrected you a long time ago." And then he hit me. An open-handed slap across the right side of my face, hard enough that the plate flew out of my hands and pieces of cheese landed on Madison's carpet. Hard enough that my ear rang for hours afterward. The room went completely silent. 25 people froze like statues. The only sound left was the music playing softly from Madison's Bluetooth speaker, some gentle acoustic lullaby version of a Nirvana song. And honestly, it was the strangest, most unreal soundtrack for a moment like that. Standing there next to a diaper cake while my father-in-law hit me. Then people started pulling out their phones. I saw at least 2 screens go up. My friend Megan, who had come with me because she can never say no to free food, already had hers recording before Walter even lowered his hand. Walter turned and gestured at the room like he was addressing workers back at his warehouse. And then I looked at my husband, Nolan, the father of the baby inside me, the baby the size of a lime, the man who was supposed to stand beside me. He was standing near the gift table, mouth slightly open, hands hanging at his sides. He didn't move. 25 adults in a room decorated with pink and blue streamers. A diaper cake on the counter. A veggie tray off to the side. And my father-in-law had just hit me. There isn't a greeting card in the world for a moment like that. Before I get into what happened at the hospital, let me just say this. If your blood pressure is already rising listening to this, then you're definitely my kind of people. Go ahead and subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one, and honestly, some of your time zones amaze me. All right, back to the worst Sunday of my life. Jake drove me to Valley Care Clinic. I asked him to. Not because I forgave him for standing there like a department store mannequin while his father hit me, but because I needed to get to a hospital, and I didn't trust myself behind the wheel. The cramping started on the drive. It was low and dull, like a fist pressing from the inside. Then came the spotting. Light, but enough to make every cell in my body panic. A year earlier, it had started exactly the same way. The same ache, the same faint pink stain, the same cold fear crawling up your spine and taking over your mind. Jake was talking, but I barely heard him. Some version of, he didn't mean it, or something just as useless. I cut him off so fast he didn't even finish the sentence. Finish that thought, I said, and I'll walk the rest of the way to the hospital. He went quiet, probably the smartest decision he made all day. The ER at Valley Care on a Sunday evening was pure chaos. A kid with a broken arm, an older man coughing into a towel, a woman arguing with the intake nurse about her insurance. But the moment I said 12 weeks pregnant and cramping, they moved fast. A nurse named Kayla brought me a warm blanket, and I almost cried over that blanket more than I cried over what had happened earlier. That's where I was emotionally. A heated piece of cotton was the kindest thing I'd experienced in 5 hours. Dr. Rachel Morgan came in around 7. They did an ultrasound, blood work, and then she said the words that make your heart drop instantly. Threatened miscarriage. If you've never heard that phrase before, trust me. It sounds exactly as terrifying as it is. But then she told me the baby still had a strong heartbeat. She gave me instructions. Strict rest for at least 48 hours. Follow up on Monday, and avoid stress. Avoid stress. I almost laughed. My father-in-law had just hit me at a baby shower. Stress practically had my mailing address. Jake sat next to me in one of those stiff green vinyl chairs. His phone kept buzzing every couple of minutes. Walter, Marlene, Madison. Walter again? The man had just hit me, and now he was blowing up my husband's phone like he was the one who'd been wronged. And then came the part that still sits heavy in my chest. Jake stepped out into the hallway to take a call. The curtain between us was thin. Hospital curtains always are. I heard everything. "Dad, calm down. She'll be fine." That's what he said. Not, "What you did was wrong." Not, "You hit my wife." Not, "I'm at the hospital because of you." Just, "She'll be fine." Like I was an inconvenience, a temporary disruption before everything could go back to normal. I stared at the ceiling after that. This might sound random, but there was a painting of a sailboat above the intake desk. White sails, bright blue water, a perfect horizon line. I stared at that painting for 3 hours. I could still describe every brushstroke if I had to. It's strange what your brain clings to when everything else feels like it's falling apart. Lying there, I started doing what so many women do when something awful happens. I questioned myself. Was I overreacting? Walter grew up in rural Kentucky in the 70s. Different time, different mindset. He had never hit me before. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe I shouldn't have talked back. Maybe if I had just smiled and swallowed the insult, like Marlene does, like Shelby does, like every other woman in that family does. maybe none of this would have happened. That thought process lasted about 40 minutes. Then I remembered the sound of the plate hitting the carpet. I remembered the ringing in my ear. I remembered the word defective. And I remembered I was 12 weeks pregnant with a daughter. I didn't know she was a girl yet, not at that moment, but I know now. So I'm telling you the truth as I understand it today. And that man put his hands on me. No, I was not overreacting. At 10:35 p.m., Megan texted me. I recorded everything. 43 seconds, clear as day. Just say the word. I didn't reply right away, but I saved the message. Now I know what some of you might be thinking. Why didn't I leave sooner? Why didn't I draw a boundary with Walter the first time he crossed a line? I've asked myself those same questions so many times I've worn them out. But the truth is, when you're inside something like that, you don't see it as a cage. You just think that's how the world works. Let me explain. Walter Parker controlled everything. And I don't mean he was just traditional or a little strict. I mean he ran his family like a shift schedule. Thanksgiving? Always at his house. Christmas? Always at his house. Madison's wedding at a venue Walter chose. When Nolan proposed to me, the ring had already been approved because Marlene wanted a say in the investment. Yes, he actually called an engagement ring an investment. That should have been my first warning. Even our wedding guest list. Walter cut 13 people. Walter cut 13 people from our wedding list. My college roommate, 3 of my cousins, a coworker I'd known for 5 years. Too many people, he said. Costs are getting out of control. It didn't matter that my parents were paying for the reception. Walter had opinions, and in that family, his opinions were law. But the real control, the thing that kept Jake tied to him for years, was the $39,000. When Jake and I bought our house on Rosewood Lane, we came up short on the down payment. Walter stepped in and offered to help. No paperwork, no agreement. Just a cashier's check, a handshake, and the words, "Family takes care of family." He even filed it as a gift on his taxes. I know that because I work in billing, and about 10 months later, when something started to feel off, I asked our accountant to confirm it. Legally, financially, on paper, it was a gift. But Walter never treated it like one. Every disagreement, every awkward holiday, every time Jake tried to stand up for himself. I put that roof over your head. He said it like it was a receipt he could pull out whenever he needed to remind us who was really in charge. Jake heard it so often that eventually he stopped reacting. It just became background noise, like the hum of the fridge, like breathing, like being owned. Then came the miscarriage, a year before the baby shower. I woke up one Wednesday with cramps that felt different. By noon, it was over. I won't go into the details. Some things are mine to keep. And honestly, this story already carries enough pain. But I will tell you what Walter did after. He didn't say anything to my face. Not once. Instead, he told the rest of the family that I was too stressed, that I worked too much, that maybe some women's bodies just aren't made for pregnancy, Marlene told Madison. Madison told Jake's cousin Allison. And Allison told me 2 months later at a cookout while we were both pretending to care about a beanbag game. Jake said nothing. Not to his father, not to the family, not even to me, until it slipped out during an argument months later. 5 months. 5 months of silence while those words floated around the family like smoke. That's how Walter operated. He'd say something awful. No one would challenge it. And eventually it became accepted as truth. So when Megan texted me that night, 10:35 p.m., sitting in the Valley Care parking lot, telling me she had 43 seconds of video, 43 seconds of a 61-year-old man hitting a woman half his size. Something inside me shifted. But before I could even process that, I got a call the next morning that almost hurt worse than the slap itself. Madison called me at 8. Monday morning. I was still on bed rest, still cramping, still lying there staring at the ceiling and quietly talking to the baby inside me. I answered, thinking she was checking on me. Instead, she said, "Katie, what did you say to Dad?" I sat up so fast the room spun. "Excuse me? He's never hit anyone in 33 years. Never. You must have pushed him. What did you say?" Her father had hit me at her baby shower, and her first instinct was to ask what I had done wrong. None of it made sense. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just ended the call. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the words. I set my phone face down on the nightstand and lay there, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. My husband felt like a ghost. My sister-in-law blamed me. My mother-in-law hadn't even called. And Walter, he was out there somewhere, probably with a beer in his hand, telling anyone who would listen that I had it coming. But I had those 43 seconds of video. And I had Megan. And somewhere in the middle of that Monday morning, lying in a bed I didn't want to be in, holding on to a pregnancy I was terrified of losing, I made a decision. I was done being controlled, done staying quiet, and completely, absolutely done with Walter Parker. Walter didn't spend that Monday feeling sorry. He spent it building his defense. By noon, he had already called Jake's Uncle Joe in Franklin, his cousin Ava in Greenville, and at least 2 of the women who had been at the shower. His version of the story went like this. Katie got disrespectful. Katie mouthed off in front of the whole family, and he reacted. Not hit, not slapped, reacted. Like his hand had acted on its own and he was just along for the ride. He told Ava I'd been provoking him for years. He told Uncle Joe I got in his face. And he told Marlene, his own wife, who had been standing just a few feet away watching everything, that I had lunged at him first. Marlene called me Sunday evening. I almost didn't answer, but I did. And I heard exactly what I expected. "Katie, honey, you know Walter has a temper, but he loves his family. Can we just move past this? For the baby's sake?" She meant Madison's baby. She had no idea about mine. No one did. Just Jake, my doctor, and now the ER staff at Valley Care. I took a breath and said, "Marlene, he hit me." And she said, "He didn't mean it like that." I need to pause here for a second. This part still weighs on me. There is nothing lonelier than telling someone you were hurt and hearing them explain why it doesn't really count. Marlene had been doing that for 36 years, taking Walter's anger, softening it, translating it into something people could accept, and handing it back like it was normal. She wasn't a bad person. She was just worn down. But in that moment, her exhaustion and my pain were 2 completely different things. And I couldn't carry both. Then came the money. Monday morning, Walter didn't call. He texted Jake. Because apparently threats are easier when they're written down. "I want my $39,000 back. You have 2 months. Don't test me, son." Jake showed me the message with this look on his face, like a man watching his own house flood from the inside. "Katie, maybe we should just apologize. Just to keep the peace. He's my dad." I just stared at him. This man I married. This man I was carrying a child for. Standing in our kitchen on Rosewood Lane, suggesting we apologize to the person who hit me. Because that person was his father. And his father had trained him his whole life to give in. And that training was still working. I wanted to scream. I really did. But I didn't. I just said, that money was a gift. He filed it as a gift. He can't legally ask for it back. Jake shook his head. "You don't know my dad." "I know the tax code, Jake. That's enough." He went to bed. I didn't. At 11 that night, I sat on the bathroom floor with my laptop and started reading Ohio assault laws. Here's what I learned. 1 slap. No visible bruise. A family setting where most of the witnesses are related to the person who hit you. Cases like that don't always go anywhere. At best, it's a misdemeanor. Walter could say it wasn't a slap. He could say it was an accident. He could hire a lawyer who knew the right people and make the whole thing disappear. My legal options didn't feel solid. They felt fragile. So here I was. My husband wanted to apologize. The law wasn't guaranteed. Madison thought I caused it. Marlene wanted me to forget it. Walter was already rewriting the story to make me the problem. And I was 12 weeks pregnant, sitting on cold bathroom tile at 1:30 in the morning, wondering if I was the only sane person in that entire family, or if somehow I was the one losing it. I almost packed a bag. My mom lives in Toledo, 2 hours north. I know that drive by heart. I could have been there by 3:30. I could have crawled into my old twin bed, wrapped up in the quilt my grandmother made, and pretended none of this was happening. But instead, I called Megan. 2 in the morning. She picked up on the second ring. That alone tells you everything about Megan Lee. I was crying hard. Not quiet tears. The kind where you can't breathe right, your nose is running, and your words don't even come out properly. I can't do this, I told her. I can't fight all of them. Walter, Marlene, Madison, and my own husband. I can't do it. She let me cry for a minute. Then she said, Katie, 23 people watched him hit you. I have it on video, 43 seconds. His hand, your face, clear as day. He's not winning this. I didn't suddenly feel strong. I didn't feel brave. I felt like a woman sitting on a bathroom floor at 2 in the morning with a sore back and a faint ringing still in her ear. But I didn't pack the bag. Walter was demanding $39,000 back. This man was retired, living off a modest pension, taking his boat out twice a year. And somehow he expected that money to just appear. From where? A miracle? Wednesday morning, I made 3 decisions. First, I drove to the Dayton Police Department on West 3rd Street and filed a report. Officer Austin Pratt took my statement. He was young, calm, patient. He also took Megan's video on a USB drive. He didn't promise anything. No arrest, no outcome. But now there was a record, a paper trail. A date? A statement that existed outside of Walter's control. Walter Parker struck Katie Parker at a family gathering on October 2nd in front of 25 witnesses. That sentence was now official. Second, Megan sent me the video. I saved it in 3 places: my phone, my laptop, and a Google Drive folder I named Insurance and shared with her. 43 seconds. By then, I had watched it 11 times. Every time I noticed something new. The way Walter squared his shoulders before he swung. The way Marlene covered her mouth but didn't move. The way Jake, my Jake, just stood there, arms at his sides like a kid waiting to be dismissed. And third, that was the hardest part. After dinner, I sat Jake down at the kitchen table. He had made spaghetti, which he only does when he feels guilty, so the whole house smelled like onions and regret. I turned off the TV. I placed my phone face down on the table and said the words I had been repeating in my head for 3 days. I'm 12 weeks pregnant. Your father hit me while I was carrying your child. If you don't choose us right now, me and this baby, I will choose us without you. Jake didn't argue. He didn't deflect. He didn't say, "That's just how he is." Instead, he covered his face with his hands. And he cried. Not angry tears. Not frustration. It was something deeper. Older. The kind of pain that had been buried for years finally breaking through. Oh, he cried like a man grieving the father he wished he had. The one he'd been defending since he was a little boy. The one who was supposed to protect people, not hurt them. I know, he said quietly. I've always known what he is. I just didn't want to admit it. That was the most honest thing Jake Parker had ever said to me. And somehow it broke my heart and healed it at the same time. I'm calling him, he said. He picked up his phone, turned on speaker, and I sat across from him, listening. Walter answered on the first ring, already loud, already in control. Finally, your mother's been worried sick. When are we putting this behind us? Jake's voice was calm, steady, different from anything I had ever heard from him. Dad, she's pregnant. 3 seconds of silence. Then Walter said, What? Katie is pregnant. 12 weeks. You hit a pregnant woman. I could hear Walter breathing on the other end. Well, how was I supposed to know that? That was his response. Not, is she okay? Not, is the baby okay? Just, how was I supposed to know? Like the pregnancy was the issue. Like hitting me would have been fine otherwise. Jake closed his eyes. That's your answer? Walter's voice rose immediately, louder, sharper. His usual reaction when he felt control slipping. You're choosing her over your own family? After everything I've done for you? I put that roof over your— Jake cut him off. You're going to talk to me about blood? Your blood is growing inside my wife right now. And you put your hands on her. I barely touched her. Goodbye, Dad. Jake ended the call. He set the phone down on the table between the pot and the paper towels, and we just sat there in silence. And I'll be honest about something that might sound small. When he hung up, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hungry. Like my body had been holding tension for so long that the second it let go, it remembered it hadn't eaten. I went to the kitchen, made a peanut butter and jam sandwich, and ate it standing over the sink, tears still drying on my face. Not glamorous, but completely real. That night, Walter called 5 times. We didn't answer. The next morning, I texted Megan. Send the video to Madison. She did. 45 minutes later, Madison called me, crying so hard I could barely understand her. I watched it. 5 times. Katie, I'm so sorry. I saw his face before I'm so sorry. I didn't tell her it was okay because it wasn't. I just said, thank you for watching it. 3 days later, Marlene called. But this time, it felt like a different version of her. Quieter. Smaller. She didn't apologize, not directly. I don't think she even remembers how to apologize for things Walter has done. But she said something I didn't expect. I should have said something a long time ago. Not just Sunday. A long time ago. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. That one sentence was probably the bravest thing Marlene Parker had said in 36 years of marriage. 5 weeks later, I was 17 weeks pregnant. The ultrasound showed a healthy baby girl. She was growing exactly as she should. Strong heartbeat, already moving like she had somewhere important to be. Walter had called Jake 13 times during those 5 weeks. Jake answered none of them. Not because I told him not to, I never did. I only told him to choose. And he did. Madison came around slowly. Not in one big moment, but in small, consistent ones. She apologized 4 different times. The 4th time I told her, you can stop apologizing and start showing up. The next day, she brought over a casserole. It was tuna spaghetti. Honestly, not great. The pasta was overcooked, and there was way too much cream. I ate 2 servings. Marlene started coming to Sunday dinners at our house. Alone. She'd drive over, park her old Ford Taurus in our driveway, and sit at our table like someone learning how to exist in a room where no one was going to raise their voice. One night, she reached over and held my hand. Just for a few seconds. No words. Then she picked up her fork and asked Jake to pass the rolls. For Marlene, that was her version of a revolution. And the $39,000? Walter never brought it up again. Because it was a gift. Filed as a gift. Documented as a gift. He knew it when he wrote the check. He knew it when he filed his taxes. And he knew it when he sent that text. It was never about the money. It was about control. And for the first time in his life, he lost it. A leash only works if the person wearing it believes it's there. We stopped believing. Walter Parker, 61 years old, retired, with that same boat sitting in his driveway that nobody asks about anymore, went from being the man who controlled every holiday, every decision, every conversation in the family, to someone no one calls. Not because anyone banned it. Not because there was some big dramatic fallout, no courtrooms, no restraining orders. It just happened. 25 people saw exactly who he was that day. And one by one, quietly, they stepped back. He did that to himself. Every bit of it. The police report is still on file. The video is still sitting in my Google Drive. I never posted it. I never had to. Those 43 seconds exist. And Walter knows they exist. Sometimes that's enough. Not everything needs to explode to matter. Sometimes just knowing the truth is out there is louder than anything you could say. Last week, Jake finished putting together the crib. It took him 4 evenings, 2 YouTube tutorials, and a whole lot of words I definitely won't repeat here. I sat out on the back porch listening to him struggle with an Allen wrench through the screen door, arguing with it like it had personally offended him. And I rested my hand on my belly, feeling our little girl moving around like she had places to be. And I thought, this is what safety sounds like. Not silence, not fear. Just a man trying, imperfectly, to build something for the people he chose. Some men think being the loudest voice in the room makes them the strongest. But in the end, it was the woman holding the paper plate who decided who still had a place in her life.